Greetings, this is Jake with Into the Wind TV, and I'm here in sunny Malibu on the beach with Michael Eisen, and he's a 27-year-old Hay House author that's releasing his first book. And something that, while on the ride up here, that I thought of, is Michael and I have become close friends, and I know that his major wasn't writing. He went to college and he wasn't writing, it was business. And now his journey has taken him to releasing a book. And this is all about overcoming and following our heart. And so I wanted to begin with that in the process of what that was like, not even being a writer, and all of that came up within yourself from those around you and how you overcame that.
Yeah. It's really funny, actually. I didn't even consider myself a writer up until like a couple months ago, and I'd already written the book. I didn't even think about writing a book up until a year ago when I found myself in a meeting with Louise Hay, founder of Hay House Publishing, and Reed Tracy, the CEO. And we were talking about creating an online project that is going to be geared towards young people, because I run an organization called the Youth Wellness Network. And as you know, I bring programs into schools, and I focus on inspiring and empowering young people of all ages to live happier and more positive lives. And so I was sitting down with Louise Hay because she shared my passion with reaching young people with this inspiring and powerful message. And one thing led to the next, and Reed Tracy said, "You got to tell your story, and you got to write a book with your father." And so I was just not even expecting that at all. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful message that a lot of the times what we end up doing isn't what we are educated to do.
When we're not educated to doing what we want to do, once we go into that pattern of education, our mind sets into a certain form. So my standing in your shoes, it seems you almost had to break your original form to go out into open space. What was so many, especially young people, have this process where they can't step outside of the box that we've been brought up in within our culture, and they don't know how to begin that. So what did you do? What was the process of doing that? And can you share maybe what was like one or two really challenging things? People, for me, it was like people are like, "Oh, you can't write a book, you can't do that," and it's like, "No, I'm going to." What was your process like?
Well, I think first off, that just to touch on the whole limiting belief systems and paradigms and programming that we're all taught at a young age. And I believe that in our society we have this issue with telling our youth how life is supposed to be. And, us as adults are supposed to know better because we've been through, the trenches, and we've experienced so much more. So we basically take our own stuff, our own beliefs, our own paradigms, and we dump it on these young, impressionable minds. And in doing so, we're stripping their self-worth, and we're stripping their self-esteem, and we're stripping their ability to love themselves. I believe that every single person on this planet is born with the natural ability to love, respect, and encourage and build themselves up. And it's from the moment that we hear no, it's from the moment that we hear, "You've got to follow this path, you've got to do this, you've got to do it this way," we start to actually question our own ability to think and feel for ourselves. And so a lot of the work that I do is really empowering these young people to realize that they have the ability to create their own life. And that's all of the stuff that I put into practice in my own life. A little bit about my story. I actually, growing up, I grew up in a household that was exactly what you said, extremely controlling. Here's the box. This is what you have to do to be successful. This is what you have to do to have a good life. These belief systems, like you go to school, you get good grades, you graduate high school, go off to college or university, get good grades again, because there's this belief system that good grades equals success. And without good grades, without being academically successful, then we can't be successful in life, which I think is a crock of shit right now, to be honest with you. This is web TV, right? I can swear.
I think it's hilarious.
Okay, but this is the stuff that we're conditioning these young minds to believe, and this is the stuff that I went through, which really created my breakdown when I was 18. So You go off to college, you get a degree. Once you get a degree, then you get a job. Hopefully the job pays a lot of money. Then that money's going to buy you the house, the cars, the weekend home, the vacations. Find yourself a partner, have a few kids, raise these kids. Then the kids go off to college. Then you retire, and then you're supposed to be happy. I mean, something's off there, right? Like, why do I have to wait 50, 60 years to be happy? I think it's completely a bunch of crock. And I think the challenge is that you have these young people, you have these young minds, and I was one of them, and going through these challenges where if you're being brought up in a household and these parents are supportive of these old belief systems, it makes it very difficult for you to break out on your own and do your own thing. So one of the things that actually sparked the big transformation in my life was that, firstly, I learned that I had the ability to actually create my own destiny. I had the ability to create my own experiences. And once I knew that I had that ability, I realized that the first thing I needed to change was my belief systems. So I needed to make my beliefs my own instead of taking the beliefs that I learned from my parents or the beliefs that I learned from my teachers or the beliefs that I learned from society. I needed to create my own beliefs. And how we do that, we need to get curious again. We need to spark our curiosity. We need to question everything. We need to question everything that we think. We need to question everything that we feel. We need to question everything that we speak about. We need to question every action we take. And we need to ask ourselves if that is actually serving us in a positive way. Do we feel good from the things that we just thought and spoke and acted upon? Or is it actually leading us down a path that is not ours? Is it leading us down a path that is maybe somebody else's dream? So in order to start living your own dream, in order to start creating your own path, you have to be curious. You have to question everything.
So what I thought of when you said that is, you're talking about questioning all of your beliefs and recognizing when you have beliefs that isn't yours. I know I have, and I know a lot of other people have. Sometimes there's a belief in you that it almost scares you that you may be letting go of it. What do you do? What's the process of releasing something that you're scared that you're scared to let go of it, because perhaps you may even think that that's where your identity comes from, or you think you've been standing on the solid ground this whole time and you don't want to take another step. The fear of releasing something that doesn't serve you.
Well, I'm gonna use something that Dr. Phil always says, and he says, "How's that working for you?" So here's the deal. If you're afraid of letting go of something, you're already thinking about letting go of something, because something in your life isn't going in the way that you want it to go. So you're already starting to question things, and there's that little bit of fear that's stopping you from taking the next step. And as Dr. Phil says, how's that working for you? How's your life working right now? And I mean, if you're starting to question things and you're not in a place where you want to be, ask yourself, do you want to stay there? Do you want to continue to live your life in someone else's path, living someone else's dream, doing someone else's job, living someone else's purpose? Because yes, the fear of the unknown can be incredibly challenging, but what's on the other side is far more rewarding than staying in a life that isn't yours. So you got to have the courage to take that step and understand that fear is actually one of our greatest teachers. And also, I also believe that fear is actually false evidence appearing real. So fear is a story that we create with our mind. And so if you've created the story that taking a step and making a big change in your life, whether you're 15, 20, 25, 30, all the way up to 50, if you're feeling that fear of making that next step, ask yourself if this is actually real, or is this a story that you are making to be real? And really take a look at your life and say, do I want to stay where I am right now? Is this really where I want to be? Is this really what I want to do? Because the way I see it is that life is a pretty long time to be here if you're not if you're not doing what you love. I mean, that's a long time to be pretty miserable, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks. So something that I've been interested in, and it's really an honor to dive into this, is so people see, for instance, people see a 27-year-old author for the biggest self-help company in the world, and they see the book. Okay, here's the book. Here's Michael Eisen. What beyond the process of through age and waking up to living somebody else's life, what type of challenges did you face in the actual writing of your book? What came up, and how did you go beyond it, being that you weren't a writer to begin with, you know?
Well, firstly, I think one of the biggest things that's so important in really discovering what it is that we truly want, uncovering our passion, finding our purpose, we need to allow our feelings to guide us, okay? So how did I get to a point where I'm 27 years old and I'm publishing my first book, and I've got this organization where, you know, according to other people, it appears to be quite successful, and, you know, how does this 27-year-old guy get to where he is? And really, it's like, first and foremost, I'm not on a pedestal. Don't ever put me on a pedestal. I go through the same stuff that every single person goes through. I am no different than anybody else. The only thing is that I've got 8 years of working on myself. So that's 8 years of building up this inner resilience that allows me to take the same challenges that everybody else is facing, and apply these tools to overcome those challenges. It's the awareness. The awareness is what actually empowers us. So I would say that over the past 8 years, my self-awareness is what's actually gotten me to where I am. I've become more aware of when I am living from a place of fear. I've become more aware of when I am not fulfilling my true purpose. And my true purpose is serving myself and serving this planet. In addition to that, something practical, something tangible. I teach a process called living your life vision and creating your life vision. And I've put this into place in order to get to where I am, and I continue to put this into place on a daily basis. And the idea behind the life vision is that what we think we want, at least what we're taught in this society, oftentimes is not actually what we want. I think the what is actually the how. So I'm going to give you an example. You're in school and they ask you, what do you want to be? What do you want to do with your life? Let's say one of the answers is, I want to be a doctor, okay? I would say that being a doctor is not what you want. I would say being a doctor is how that's going to show up in your life. What you want is how being a doctor is going to make you feel. What you want is why you want to be a doctor. The doctor is not what you want, okay? Same thing applies for a physical possession. Let's say you want that red sports car, okay? I would question if that's really what you want. I don't believe the red sports car is what you want. I believe how the red sports car is going to make you feel is what you want. So the challenge is that we're taught to be going after the what we think is the what, but it's really the how. And we need to actually get beneath the surface. Picture an iceberg, okay? You see an iceberg? 1/3 of that iceberg is what you see above the surface. 2/3 of the mass of an iceberg is beneath the surface. 2/3. The majority of that iceberg is beneath the surface. But we only pay attention to what's up here. So what we need to do is actually get beneath the surface and uncover how we want to feel. We need to discover those core feelings. So, for an example, when someone asked me what I wanted to do, let's say I said I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't actually want to be a doctor. It's how a doctor wanted to make me feel. So I wanted to help people. I wanted to feel fulfilled. I wanted to feel powerful. And I didn't actually want to be a doctor. I'm just using this as an example, right? Someone asks you if you want the red sports car. It's not the red sports car you want. It's how that's going to make you feel. So it's going to make me feel free and liberated. It's going to make me feel special. That is what you want. You want those feelings. Now, here's the kicker, and here's the best part. When you focus on the feelings, and the feelings become your driving force of what you want, then we're working with the infinite nature that the universe is. Then we're actually opening up our mind, and we're taking off the tunnel vision. And we're not limiting ourselves to a certain way that is supposed to show up in our lives. So you might end up being a doctor, but if you get there, you're going to know how you want to feel, and you're going to already be feeling it. And when you get there, you're going to be fulfilled. But if you don't do this practice and you don't get in touch with those feelings, you might work your butt off and spend 8 years in school and finally become a doctor and get there and be like, ooh, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. This isn't actually what I want, because you weren't in touch with how you wanted to feel in the first place. And that's ultimately what I put into practice, and I try and do that as diligently as I can every day. That's how I've gotten to a point where my book is being published, and that's how I've gotten to a point where the organization is growing, because that's not what I want. What I want are the feelings. What I want is to help young people. What I want is to feel fulfilled. What I want is to feel loved. What I want is to feel free. And I allow those feelings to guide me into action.
Because it's like, okay. Michael, you said that you want to feel liberation, you want to feel freedom, and oftentimes it's happened in my own life, and I think can be a product of the human mind where we don't know how to get to that feeling. What's a process that Michael Eisen uses to get to those?
I mean, I love that question. Why? Because firstly, as males in our society, we are taught that feeling is actually a sign of weakness. Expressing our emotion is a sign of weakness. And we're taught to actually suppress what we are feeling. And so it makes a lot of sense that we get to a point later in our lives where we can't actually get in touch with those feelings anymore. I also believe that we have this tendency, both males and females in this society, to overthink things. We activate our minds more than we activate our hearts. Now, little sidebar here. Did you know that emotion in its natural state is supposed to flow through our bodies in 90 seconds or less?
That's nice.
Okay? 90 seconds or less, right? And if you don't believe me, go watch a child under the age of 2. Okay? And you will notice how fast they go from hysterically crying to laughing. It will blow your mind. And I have a little niece, and I see it every time I hang out with her, where you can go from absolutely devastated to laughing hysterically in less than a minute. Why? Because the mind does not get involved with the feeling process. Okay? Somewhere along the lines, because our society does not value the feelers as much as they do the thinkers, we're taught the more thoughts wins. The more thoughts will get you to, the faster you get to the finish line, the more thoughts you think, the better off you're going to be. That impedes the feeling process. Okay? So yes, of course, somebody hears me say, let's get in touch with our feelings, and they say, I don't even know how to do that. Yeah. Why? Because we're trying to think our way through feeling. How many times when you ask somebody how they feel, do they say, well, I think I feel this, and I think I feel that? You're thinking how you feel. You're not actually in your body feeling. So how do we get into that body? Number one, we need to learn how to quiet our minds. Our minds are overly active. We have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts go through our minds on a daily basis. Like, it's exhausting just thinking about that, right? So here's a couple of practices, number one, to start slowing down our mind. Firstly, do a daily thoughts journal. Pull out a notebook, pull out a pen, and write down everything that you are thinking for 5 minutes a day. Practice that for a couple weeks, and I promise you will already start to feel less traffic going through your head. Okay? Next step, meditation. Meditation is incredibly important. Meditation is the practice of slowing down our minds and opening up our hearts. It's what gets us to that place of stillness. That stillness is incredibly important because when we're in that stillness, that is when we feel. Not how we think we feel, but we feel it in our body. We start to actually integrate what I'm talking about in our physical body. So we slow down our mind with the thoughts journal. We slow down our mind with meditation. And if you have no idea how to meditate, I mean, firstly, you can actually go to my website, youthwellnessnetwork.ca, and I have a free audio meditation download directly on my site. And that's a great place to start to learn how to meditate. Once we've put those practices into place, the feeling starts to come naturally. Because when the mind slows down, the heart, we start to listen to our heart, and we actually recognize what our heart is saying. Okay? Another great way to practice the art of feeling is movement. Get your body moving. dance, do some yoga. You know, when you take things from your mind and you integrate them down into your body, you need that movement in order to get from one place to the other, okay? And then finally, just sit and breathe. Sit and breathe and slow down, okay? What does freedom feel like? Not what does freedom think I feel like? Freedom to me feels like there's absolutely no tension whatsoever from head to toe in my body. Freedom feels like I can go anywhere at any point without any limitation and know that I'm going to be taken care of. Freedom is the ability to do what feels good all of the time. All of the time. And know that everything will be taken care of. In your body, what does that translate into? Ease, peace, relaxation. There's no tenseness. There's no dis-ease. Just peace.
Right on. Yeah, what I thought of when you said that, it's same thing that, you know, Laird Hamilton said the same thing. He's like, you know what you want to feel and you just have to do it. And when you talked about that, I thought of when I left to travel and I was like, I just know it's just going to be cool, even though I'm like this tall white guy in a third world country, you know? And what that leads me to is actually to our subject that I feel is so pertinent to understand, becoming aware of before we can experience this freedom, and that's the social norms. And so what I'm interested in is, what did you use? What process did you have to use? Did you have to use any? Or what was a specific challenge you went through in writing the book? You know, because people say, you know, I have this that I want to do this, here's my goal. And then Billy says, yeah, but you've been doing this for so long, so that you should not do that, or you should try something else. Did you have a strategy? Was it not a strategy, and was it just willingness to continue onward, you know? What was that like? Doing something that you did something that's unfamiliar to your mind.
So the interesting thing about the writing process for me was that this book found me. You know, like, I didn't go out seeking, saying I've got a story to write and a story to tell and get somebody to publish it. It found me. And really, a big part of it was I just needed to agree. I needed to step into what was showing up in my life. And once I agreed to, number one, be vulnerable, because if you read my book, you'll read a lot of the stuff that I tell in my story is stuff that a lot of people are afraid to share. But for me, it was like, it wasn't hard to share because I've been practicing being so open in expressing myself. And I know that by expressing myself and sharing my story, it's going to inspire many others to do the same and to get out of that belief system that we want to suppress what we're going through and feel that shame and that fear of not actually sharing what we're going through. And that's actually what creates even more challenges in the first place. When it came to actually sitting down and writing the book, I felt like I was giving birth. I felt like this thing was writing through me. One of the biggest challenges that I faced was that I was co-authoring this book and I was writing it with somebody else. And so I had my own visions and my own way of sharing my story, and my dad had his own visions and the own way of sharing his story. And it was when we were coming together to really make it all fit is when we ran into some issues. Because although we have a fantastic relationship now, because the past 8 years, he's been the coach and I've been the student. But more recently, in the past couple years, I've become a teacher myself. And so our relationship dynamic has completely changed. And so we needed to actually step into a place where we were more equals instead of father, son, and coach and student. And that's where we actually had some power struggles. And it was the unique thing was that my dad says it's like karma coming around, where I actually started to control him. So in my childhood, here's this man who was always controlling me, limiting my freedom. And now because I got the book deal, it was like, and it was my vision, I was started to control him in the process. in addition to that, I would also say that self-care is probably the most important thing when we are cultivating and growing our artistic side. We need to be in that place of stillness, of feeling, of expressing that creativity. And it's a commitment. It is a commitment. I mean, I found that the mornings was the best part for me, the best time of the day to write. So I sat down every morning for a couple hours and I wrote. And whether what I wrote wasn't very good or not, I wrote. I just committed to get myself in that chair and I wrote. But another thing that I learned is that the whole idea of hibernating when you're writing and locking yourself up from the world, to me, it didn't really work out so well. And I felt like I needed to engage in other things in order to actually fuel the creativity that was coming out of me in writing. So some people, it works for some people to lock themselves off from the world and hibernate and write for like 24 hours in a row. But like, I can't do that. So for me, I'm a very social person. So I'll take my mornings and I'll write, and then I'll go out and I'll interact with people. And that way, when I wake up the next morning, my juices are still flowing.
That's neat. I think that's really cool to see the diversity between two people. And so, what's teamwork mean to you? I thought of teamwork while you were sharing that.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
What does teamwork mean? It's a very good question. Teamwork, I would also change that maybe to co-creation, collaboration. To me, teamwork, co-creation, collaboration is where two individuals come together, or two individuals or a group of individuals come together. Each individual is very confident in their own abilities, is confident in their own image, their own identity, is confident in their own ability to process and learn. And there's absolutely no dependency on the other individual when they come into this opportunity to work with each other. Okay? The same thing goes with any romantic relationship, or with even any friendship, or with even a father-son or a mother-daughter or a parent-child relationship. Each individual needs to know that they do not become attached to the other individual to provide anything that they can provide within themselves. The best teamwork, the best co-creation comes from the sum of two parts. So you have two whole parts that come together, and what I call, you create a third circle. And that third circle is where all the juicy stuff happens. But each individual... It is like a Venn diagram. You've got the individual here, you've got the individual here, and then you've got this third circle. Whereas instead, a lot of people interpret any type of co-creation or relationship where you've got half of an individual and half of an individual, and they look to the other person to fill the holes in which they are not, and they come together and they form one circle. But the problem with that is that you're going to have a consistent power struggle. Because I believe each individual naturally has to be their own complete self. You cannot fill anything that is supposed to be coming from within yourself from another person, or from another experience, or from anything outside of yourself. So the most important thing, the definition of teamwork, is when two whole individuals come together and create. And when that happens, when that process happens, magic happens. The stuff that comes from the collective is so much more powerful than what comes from one individual.
So you've been in collaboration or teamwork with a lot of people that have influenced your life. And so far, my favorite question has been, what I want to know is, what is the common thread between all these people that are inspiring everybody's lives, or your own life, you know? What's the common thing between? And the reason what got me going on is somebody asked me that question for myself, and I was like, man, I want to know that about everyone. So what is it that the common thing between, maybe Luis Hay is a really influential person on your life, maybe it's your dad, or maybe it's a guy at the store. What is it between all these people?
The ones that have had the most influence in my life and continue to have the most influence in my life, the most common character trait is authenticity. Authenticity is, to me, is the most important thing. The ability to walk the talk, practice what you preach, show up in the way that you want other people to be. That is by far the most important thing, and that is what inspires me. Okay? Being 27 years old, going through this process of, I still don't even think I'm on the cusp of being worthy of like on a pedestal where people look up to, but some people do. The most important thing for me, and I've actually gone through this over the past month, is that I don't ever want to lose touch with my roots. That is one of my biggest fears, that something shinier and more bright will come along and allure me away from what matters the most. And I lose.
Or a brighter image of yourself or something?
Sure. Or an outside external possession or opportunity or whatever it is that allures me away from my true meaning, my true purpose, which is service, which is contribution. That's what purpose is. Purpose is service and contribution and growth. Okay? So authenticity is so important for me because humility is so important to me. Being grounded in who we truly are is so important to me. I don't buy in.
What does it mean to be grounded? What does it mean? Some people may not know that.
What it means to be grounded is to show up fully who you are without allowing ego to be the driving force. And what I mean by ego is like anything like significance or power or influence or money. Things that are external things. If they are the driving force behind what you are doing for this planet, to me that's not authentic. It's not genuine. So authenticity, genuine, someone who is standing true in who they truly are and showing up fully in that. And anything that they are teaching this world, they are practicing and living. I always say, I live what I teach and I teach what I live.
We're just going to go a couple more questions, and I want to know, because starting a book, you said some days you wrote well, some days you didn't write well. So the mind may look at that as the term failure, or you went up to business and a lot of your time has been consumed with writing a book. What does the word failure mean, and what is it? How do you go beyond the mind's diagnosis of this thing that's so bad?
Love that question. I redefined failure. Failure to me is an opportunity to learn and grow. And as a result of that, I actually redefined my purpose. And this happened when I was in university because I was studying to get grades. That's a whole other conversation, but I think that's one of the flaws in our education system, is that we are promoting the studying to get results, to get grades, instead of the studying to actually learn. And so I reprogrammed my purpose of life to be learning plus growth. Period. Purpose of life equals learning plus growth. Everything else stems from that. So to me, failure, there's no difference between failure and success, because I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow from everything equally. Some of it is going to feel really good, and some of it won't. Some of it might feel like the world's crashing down on me. But as long as I maintain that mentality of what am I here to learn and grow from, and how am I applying that, and how am I evolving, there's no such thing as a fear of failure anymore.
Nice. Right now we're in a time where humanity in general is at a crossroads. Individuals are, but also the collective human race, the planet itself. And right now is an important time where ancient tribes, whomever has said, now we have to engage ourselves fully. And a term that I like to use is engaging as a citizen of the world, as this one human race. And I think it can be too daunting for the mind to know how to become a world citizen. What are 3 ways one can begin to bring out all of this heart, all of who they are, into the world, to pave this new road where we know where the 2 roads of our future are going, and we have the opportunity to create a whole new road, a whole new way?
Number 1, make yourself the most important person in your world. Not the world, your world. because I firmly believe that you cannot give what you do not have. You can try as hard as you possibly can, but if you're giving an empty tank from an empty tank, you're not serving anybody. You're not only not serving this world, but you're not serving yourself. Make yourself the most important person in your world, because then you can make others the most important people in the world. You can show up more fully for other people that way. Number 2, practice perspective. 7 billion different people on this planet means 7 billion different ways of seeing every circumstance, scenario, and experience. You want to be a world citizen? Understand that every single individual on this planet is going to see things differently. No two people are going to see the same thing the same way. Practice. Stop making your way the way.
Nice. Yeah.
Stop trying to be right and be free. And put yourself in other people's shoes and understand where they're going for. And that will allow you to respond with compassion and empathy. Number 3, courage. Have the courage to follow your heart even when your mind says, I don't think so. Have the courage to walk a path that very few have walked before you. Have the courage to take a chance on yourself, because the rewards are much greater.
Thank you. Special thanks to Michael Eisen, and his book's coming out this week, and it's called Empowered Youth, and you can check it out on Amazon.com. And his organization is Youth Wellness Network. And this is Into the Wind TV, and thank you so much for watching, and take a step and follow your heart, please, for everyone.